What's actually going on in Aurora, Colorado? That's a question a lot of people are asking, and I found myself asking earlier this year, and I'm going to aim to answer it in this video. Aurora made national headlines in 2024 for all the wrong reasons. Gang members allegedly taking over apartment buildings. There was video of them going into apartments with fully automatic weapons. The whole thing was not good. And like any story like this, it got taken and used as a political ping pong ball, if you will, to try to score points for various political parties. And when that happens, it makes it really hard to understand exactly what's going on because the truth seems to get distorted. So that's why I've found myself asking, okay, what's actually going on in Aurora? And I'm taking this opportunity to dive into it. And as part of that, look at what Aurora, Colorado is and isn't overall to hopefully help you know if it's a good fit for you as a place to live. A lot has been said about Aurora, not just because of this whole gang thing, but just in general. I have said a lot about Aurora, and honestly, my position on Aurora has changed quite a bit over the last 12 months. And so I want to tell you about that. And by the way, if you are considering moving to the Denver Metro and need any help in the house hunt, please do reach out. There's like 4 ways to do it around here. I work with the best, most tight-knit group of real estate agents in town. I know because I've checked. We would love to see if we could help you out. Okay, so we'll get to all the gang stuff here in a minute. But first of all, let's do a little segment I like to call What is Aurora and what can it do for you? And really this is just some background on the city of Aurora, Colorado. So first of all, 3rd largest city in the state of Colorado. Many people don't know this. It goes Denver, Colorado Springs, Aurora. Aurora's population right around 400,000 people, has grown a lot in the last 10, 15 years, like a lot of places in the Denver area. And if you look at a map, you will see why it's so populated. It is huge. And that's the thing we sometimes miss when we're talking about Aurora. And is Aurora a good place to live? Is Aurora a bad place to live? Aurora is a lot of different things. So some parts are good places to live. Some parts definitely aren't. We will talk about that. But just looking at Aurora, I mean, it goes all the way out to Watkins, basically, dang near to Bennett, all the way up to the airport, kind of follows Green Valley Ranch up there. It is huge. And then all the way down to basically almost Parker on the southeast side. A huge swath of land. I don't know if that's the right word or not, but that's why Aurora sometimes is really hard to talk about. And that's one of the reasons my opinion on Aurora has changed. When in the past, when people have asked me, should I move to Aurora? A lot of the time my answer would be no, unless XYZ, but in general, no, because it's not my favorite suburb of Denver, because the parts of Aurora I was most familiar with weren't that great. Now getting to know the area a little bit better, my answer is it depends. Because of this map, because of how big Aurora is, I don't recommend you go live out by the Colorado Air and Spaceport unless you really want to. But there are parts of Aurora that are actually good. Like not just live there if you have to, live there because you want to. And the best thing about the city of Aurora when it comes to buying a house is homes are significantly more affordable there than they are in a lot of parts of the Denver Metro. For example, the Denver Metro median home price across all properties, and this is for all 7 counties of the Denver Metro, $625-ish. In Aurora right now, median home price $480. Huge difference. Does that include the parts of Aurora that kind of suck? Yes, but that also includes the good parts of Aurora. And just anecdotally, you can get a single family home in Aurora that's in a good part, good, well-maintained, solid home with a yard for easily $500 to $550 right now. And a lot of the time you can get the same thing for under $500. May not be in perfect shape. You might need to put in a little sweat equity, but it's not going to be a dump. And any single family home that's not a total remodel in the Denver metro area right now, under $500,000 is tough. In the city of Denver, probably not happening. So for that reason, I like Aurora. Now let's dive in and talk about the different parts. So first of all, the bad. And this is what I was referencing earlier when I used to say, no, don't live in Aurora because it's just not great. A lot of that is this, and nothing's anything, by the way. So I was going to say, don't yell at me. You can yell at me if you want. Who cares? But just to say, I know there are exceptions to all of these things. But a lot is this East Colfax, this northwest side of Aurora. So that's kind of around East Colfax up here and, I don't know, Havana? Really just to the northeast of the Lowry neighborhood, which is kind of ironic because Lowry is a newer, nicer neighborhood, but that's what happens in urban settings a lot of the time. Much of this area, I don't know. older, some of it's run down. I know I'm not supposed to say areas are dangerous or whatever, but let me put it this way. There are not too many places in the Denver metro I don't feel safe going. Parts of East Colfax, I do not safe. Now, here's where the caveat and the dichotomy of it all comes in, because adjacent to this East Colfax area are some of the better parts of Aurora. For example, I was going to talk about food here, and Aurora's food scene is actually pretty good overall. It's, I believe, the most diverse city in the Denver metro and maybe in Colorado, and that brings a lot of pretty darn good food options. And on the fine dining end, there's one really, really standout option, Annette. So Annette's up here, barely in Aurora, okay, but it is in Aurora. Annette's one of the most well thought of restaurants. In fact, when the Michelin Guide came to Colorado, it was kind of a whole thing that they weren't visiting Annette. The reason they didn't is because Annette's in Aurora, and Aurora wasn't one of the cities they're visiting. That's not because Aurora, the Michelin Guide, refused to go there or something. Honestly, that's because a city has to pay Michelin to come in, and Aspen and Boulder and Denver did that. They paid to play, and Aurora did not. So, but it was still a thing. Point being, Annette is one of the best restaurants in the entire state, and that's here in Aurora in the Stanley Marketplace. And if you've been to the Stanley Marketplace, you know it's, in my opinion, a great place to hang out. It's a food hall. We have a few of those around town, but it's one of the better ones. It's family friendly. There's a lot to do. You can get a beer. You can bike around there, playgrounds, whatever. It's great. And this is all in Aurora. Another big calling card for Aurora is the Anschutz Medical Campus. If you're watching this video, maybe that's what brought you there, is that you're taking a job at Anschutz or something like that. A lot of folks, that's why they end up moving to town. Anschutz is a big medical campus, kind of on Colfax and 225. So just to the southeast of where I was talking about before. It's got a ton of hospitals and clinics and, well, dare I say, world-renowned medical care there. That's all here in Aurora. Children's Hospital of Colorado is on the Anschutz Medical Campus. A lot going on there, a lot of good. So that's what's going on up in that northwest old Aurora part of Aurora. Some good, some not so good. And don't worry, we're getting to the whole gang thing too. So if you're here for that, stick around. We'll talk Trump. We'll talk all kinds of fun stuff. But what I've learned a lot more about in the recent year and a half is this more southern, southeastern part of Aurora, where it's newer. And if you're looking for something newer, you may be interested in. There are nice houses. They are affordable. There are many, many neighborhoods down here, kind of in the Meadow Hills, Pheasant Run area, that are nice. They're nothing to write home about. They're nothing to get super excited about. But again, you can get a home there for much cheaper than you can just a few miles to the west. This Foxfield area is a nice part. Talon's Reach down here is very nice. There's $1 million+ homes down there. It's way the heck out there. If that's your thing, that's a good place to look. That's Aurora. So Aurora kind of does have something for everyone if you look hard enough. And so where I say my tone has changed on Aurora, I used to sort of say it's not even worth looking at. Now, especially with affordability issues, interest rates, all that sort of stuff, I have seen clients have a lot of success looking for homes, finding good homes in good areas here in Aurora, especially in the southeast part. A lot of the time, it's not sexy. It's not exciting. It's a basic neighborhood, but it's not bad. There are good places to eat. It might not be Annette all over the place down there. It might not be Sushi Den, which I talk about on this channel all the time, but there are good spots to eat. There are community pools. It's not Cherry Hills, but do you really want to live there anyway? Maybe. To each their own. Another thing too here, and I'm just going to pull up the map here, but Cherry Creek School District is very big, and you can see here it covers a lot of that southern part of Aurora. Cherry Creek schools are very well thought of, so this I see as a plus for a lot of people moving to Aurora. If you're moving there with kids, it is a good school district by many metrics. People seem to enjoy and appreciate it. It spans a few different cities, if you will, but Aurora is a big part of it, at least this southern part. Okay, so what's going on with this whole gang thing and safety and crime and all of that in Aurora? So we're going to talk about this. It's going to have a fair amount to do with politics and politicians, especially as this channel has gotten bigger. It would probably be prudent for me to be very calculated in the way I talk about this. I'm not very good at that. So I'm just going to talk about it the way I would talk about it to a human being, and we'll let the chips fall where they may. Deal? deal. All right, so I got a few articles and some stats to go through to try to get a picture of what's going on. So first of all, it starts here. This CBS News article says, as Trump puts Aurora, Colorado in the spotlight, mayor calls Venezuelan gang claims grossly exaggerated. So, like I said before, videos of Venezuelan gangs breaking into apartments with machine guns, taking them over. I don't know. Something to that effect. There were a few apartment complexes that were identified in Aurora. Media ran with it. Oh no, the city is overrun by Venezuelan gangs. Then what happened was Trump did a campaign event. He flew to Colorado to do a campaign event and was basically saying, oh, look at this. They're coming in. They're overrunning the city. They're taking it over. You have to vote for me so that this doesn't happen. I think he did it at the Gaylord Hotel by the airport, which is hilarious because I don't know if the address there is technically Aurora, but it's nowhere near the areas we're talking about. And then you have, and by the way, for those of you, the big thing here is the Sephora savings event. It's coming up. So hopefully you're seeing this before it happens, and I'm going to add it to my calendar. Love ads, but hey, we all got to make money. Mayor Mike Kaufman, the mayor of Aurora, then, of course, he chimed in. The article says, after weeks of misleading claims by the former president that the city's a war zone, Mike Kaufman says concerns about the gang activity has been grossly exaggerated. He said the incidents were limited to several apartment complexes in this city of more than 400,000 residents. So I guess we are over 400,000 now. Well, we have had some new residents come in since 2022. And then Aurora Police Department Chief Todd Chamberlain said in a press conference in September, the city is not by any means overtaken by Venezuelan gangs. That, as far as I can tell, unequivocally true. The city has not been overtaken by Venezuelan gangs. Just a little context, I live, 2 miles from Aurora. I go through and to Aurora a number of times for the reasons I mentioned earlier, my job being chief among them. I have not noticed the city being taken over. Now, I've also been by those apartment complexes in question, at least one or two of them, looked around, did not seem like they were taken over, but I don't know what that would look like anyway. Point being, here's my take on what's happening here. This is a little political ping pong back and forth, right? Trump is going to come in and he's going to use this for his own devices. Say, oh, they're taking over the immigrants, the gangs. He's been saying that since 2016. This is a great opportunity for that. Slightly disingenuous in ways. But then again, Mayor Mike Kaufman is doing a little of the political speak too, because he's saying this is grossly exaggerated. These incidents were limited to several apartment complexes. Okay, well, if there's gang members taking over or sowing fear and breaking into apartment complexes with machine guns, seems like a big deal, Mike, even if it's just several apartment complexes. And by the way, this is a bit of an aside, but I actually personally have a lot of respect for Mike Kaufman. I don't know the guy at all, but as far as politicians go, he actually seems pretty legit. I don't even know if he's a Republican or a Democrat. I don't care. I always come back to this 2021 story about him. He went undercover to live on the streets to learn about homelessness for a week. My man was undercover, and this wasn't a fake thing. I think he told one reporter because he had to get the story out. At least that was the plan. He's a Marine Corps veteran. He slept on the streets with no wallet, no phone, no nothing for a week just to see what was going on with the homeless situation in Aurora and Denver. I don't know, you can say it was a stunt or whatever, but to me, when I saw this, it made a mark on me. That's why I always go back to it, because it seems like a politician actually walking the walk and actually trying to figure out what's going on with an issue rather than just talking about it. Neither here nor there, but my point is I have respect for this guy, but it still does seem that it's a little politician speak to say, no, nothing to see here. Nothing to see here at all. It was just a few incidents with a few gangs in a few apartment buildings. Okay, but the article goes on. However, after patrolling the complex, the police department said gang members had not taken over the building. This was the one on Dallas Street. That was the biggest one that was newsworthy. And residents were not paying rent to gangs. That was part of this story, that, oh, they're now paying rent to gangs, hence the takeover narrative. Kaufman visited the building and said tenants told him they did not have safety concerns, but were alarmed by garbage piling up and rodent infestation. That's where this story gets more interesting, in my opinion. He said the tenants told him that residents hadn't been paying rent because there was no longer an on-site property manager who had always collected the rent. Did the property manager leave because of gangs? Maybe, I don't know. But he also notes, at least according to the mayor, the initial reports of gang takeover came from the property management company. And Kaufman and the property management company are basically at war. Kaufman saying, this goes back to the rodents and the garbage piling up thing, he actually called them an out-of-state slumlord, and he says the company is exploiting the crisis. Here in a local ABC article, CBZ Management, that's the company, has doubled down on their claims that several of their apartment complexes are under gang control. Mike Kaufman disputes this, and he points out, prior to the migrant crisis, they were not maintaining these buildings, and we were in court with them prior to all of this. They didn't maintain their properties, he says, before we ever had this crisis. I think they're an out-of-state slumlord that has never taken care of their properties and really has no intention of coming back. Okay, so quick reality check here. What seems right, just based on what we know? Probably some gang activity at the buildings. Probably also a little slumlordy activity going on. Then the company went on Twitter and posted an inspection saying that this had passed inspection by the city of Aurora, that it's fine, that these apartment buildings are habitable. Okay, congratulations. Then there was a statement the city posted on X, which used to be called Twitter. These delinquent property owners, managers, and/or investors conveniently fail to acknowledge that their own bank lenders took them to court in the last few weeks, where a judge ordered some of their problematic properties into receivership. That means the judge gave a third party the authority to actually manage the properties because the property manager themselves, the landlord, wasn't effectively doing it. Are we in the weeds far enough? Maybe, but we're almost done, but it goes on. Weeks ago, Denver 7 uncovered that CBZ Management owed more than $44,000 in fines for citations issued to one of its Denver properties. The management company released a statement blaming growing homelessness in the city. What's the end result here? Well, we don't know, right? It's a bunch of information. That's what's so frustrating about news in general these days. It's hard to know what's exactly true, what seems most likely. A lot of migrants to the city of Denver and Aurora since 2022, especially in 22 and 23. With that, seems likely came some gang members, which caused gang activity at some of these properties in Aurora. Not good. After these initial reports, I should also mention that Aurora police went in and made like a dozen arrests. Also, seems like management company hasn't been really doing a great job of maintaining these properties for years and is sort of using this as a convenient out. As they say, the truth lies in between. What does this mean for Aurora in general? I do think it's been a little overblown. I do think it's not good, and I think it's a legitimate news story and not something that shouldn't be reported on. I don't think it means the city of Aurora should be avoided at all costs, especially considering how big it is and considering that a lot of those marquee areas of Aurora are actually pretty close to these places we're talking about. If we look at crime, I have some statistics for this too, which we can take a look. Crime rate in cities near Aurora. I want to look at this first. This is from the Common Sense Institute of Colorado. They look at stats on crime and economics. So this is just the crime rate till about 2023, actually. The Aurora crime rate here is on the high side for the Denver Metro, 8,400 basically. That's higher than North Glen, that's higher than Thornton, you go all the way down the list. Federal Heights is extremely low, in fact. But the one city consistently higher than Aurora, Denver. Denver crime rate is going up. It's actually come down from 22 to 23, but it's going up over the last decade, considerably higher than Aurora. So I help people move to Denver all the time, and safety sometimes comes up, but it doesn't seem like one of those, oh, am I moving to an unsafe city? Which is funny because Aurora's crime rate is still on the high side, at least for these surrounding suburbs that this report looked at, but is much lower than Denver. Okay, and then this same institute, the Common Sense Institute, in September did a whole study on crime in Aurora in high migrant areas to basically respond to this national news story. By the way, Common Sense Institute calls themselves a nonpartisan research organization dedicated to the protection and promotion of Colorado's economy. I don't know what that means, but if we're just looking at data, take this for what you will. Okay, and in this report, I won't bore you with all of it, it's really big, but they have some key findings. First of all, key finding number one, Aurora's violent crime is not rising as a whole. Violent crime in both Aurora and Denver has decreased since the 2022 peak, though they mentioned 2023 annual crime remained elevated from crime in 2019. So overall upward trend in crime, although it peaked in 2022 and has come down since then. They also note that identifying crime trends is difficult among non-citizens as reporting is lower, makes total sense. Publicly available crime maps do not show a consistent trend of rising crime in the Denver and Aurora locations known to house high numbers of migrants. However, and this is a big however, they do show a localized spike in police-reported crime at 3 Aurora complexes. Well, what do you know? That's the apartment complexes we're talking about. So, overall, crime is not going up even in high concentrated migrant areas. Why would it? I guess if the gangs are concentrated there. But overall, we do have a problem in these specific areas, these specific buildings with crime. They show the apartments of interest here. This is not real high resolution graph, so apologies, but they actually show 5 properties here. And you can see Dallas Street, that's the big one that's been talked about. It has skyrocketed. Nome Street, that has gone up quite a bit too. Alton Street is actually down a little bit, but still up a lot since 2021. Then I like this graph because this just shows violent crime since 2008, actually. So you see not a great trend overall in Aurora, and this is mirrored by other areas of Denver as well. But you do see it peaked in 2022, came down significantly in 23. Now the 24 data is only through July, so we don't have, this is not crime rate, this is just number of crimes. So this is incomplete. We can't know anything here yet. And for comparison, same thing in Denver. Higher, it did come down from 22 to 23. 24 seems lower, but we don't know yet. So again, moral of the story, check. Overall crime not going up in Aurora, actually going down. However, crime in those very specific localized areas has not been good, and that also makes sense. Thank you for watching. If you have other questions about Aurora, please put them below. And if you want to know a more in-depth information about just the Denver real estate market and where it is right now, I'll post a video to that here somewhere. You are the best. I love you. Call me anytime. See ya.